The German Shepherd wouldn't stop barking. Rex, a 6-year veteran of the K9 unit, trained to remain composed during gunfire, explosions, and chaos, was losing his mind at a funeral. His handler's funeral. Officers tried pulling him back, their dress uniforms straining as 70 pounds of muscle and grief lunged forward. But Rex wasn't mourning. He was warning. The barking turned frantic, desperate, echoing off the chapel walls where 200 officers stood in formation. Daniel Walker's mother clutched her chest, tears frozen on her face as she watched the dog, her son's partner, claw at the polished mahogany casket like he was trying to tear through it. The police chief stepped forward, hand raised to signal the handlers. "Get him out! Now!" But Rex's eyes, they weren't filled with sorrow. They were filled with recognition. And that's when Officer Martinez made a decision that would either destroy his career or expose something far worse. He reached for the casket lid. "We need to open it." The chief's face went white. "Absolutely not. This is a funeral, not a—" "Sir, I've worked with Rex for 3 years," Martinez's voice cracked. "He's never wrong." Silence. Then the sound of latches clicking open, and a woman's scream that would haunt everyone present for the rest of their lives. Because the body inside wasn't Daniel Walker. How does a hospital lose a living officer and bury him alive in paperwork? How does a dog know what doctors, nurses, and an entire police department missed? And where was Daniel? 18 months earlier, Daniel Walker wasn't supposed to be in the K9 unit at all. Fresh out of the academy in 2017, most rookies wanted patrol, SWAT, or detective tracks. Daniel wanted Rex. Or rather, he wanted a dog. Any dog. He'd grown up surrounded by German Shepherds, volunteered at shelters through college, and joined the force specifically to request K9 assignment. His application was unusual, persistent, and eventually approved. That's how he met Rex. The 5-year-old Belgian Malinois sat in the training yard, perfectly still, watching Daniel approach with eyes that held something heavier than discipline. Sergeant Kowalski, the K9 coordinator, lit a cigarette and didn't sugarcoat it. Rex's handler was killed 9 months ago. Shootout during a domestic disturbance call. Marcus took 3 rounds to the chest before Rex could react. The dog watched him bleed out. Daniel crouched 6 feet away, not approaching. And Rex hasn't fully trusted a human since. Kowalski exhaled smoke. He obeys commands. He performs. But he doesn't bond. He's been through 2 potential handlers. Both requested transfers. Said the dog was cold, unresponsive. Rex's ears twitched. Daniel didn't move closer, just sat down in the dirt. "How long do I have?" "Take the whole afternoon." Kowalski walked away. "If he lets you touch him by sunset, maybe you've got a shot." Daniel sat in silence for an hour, then 2. No words, no treats, no forced interaction. Just presence. Just patience. And when Rex finally stood, walked 3 steps forward, and pressed his nose against Daniel's palm, neither of them knew they were starting something that would one day cheat death itself. 3 months into their partnership, Daniel and Rex still operated like strangers with a shared assignment. Rex followed commands, tracked suspects, alerted to narcotics, cleared buildings with mechanical precision. But the connection wasn't there yet. Daniel felt it every time Rex returned to the patrol car. The dog would hop in, sit in his secured compartment, and stare straight ahead. Not at Daniel. Not at anything. Just away. Then came the Riverside Forest case. A 9-year-old girl, Emma Castellano, vanished during a family camping trip. 40 officers combed the woods for 6 hours before K9 units were deployed. Daniel and Rex arrived at dusk, the forest already swallowing light and hope in equal measure. The girl's father stood by the command tent, face hollow. "Please, she's afraid of the dark." Rex caught the scent off Emma's jacket within minutes, but the trail led deep, 2 miles into terrain so dense that helicopter searchlights couldn't penetrate. The other K-9 teams turned back, waiting for dawn. Protocol said Daniel should too. He looked at Rex. The dog's body language had changed. Ears forward, tail straight, muscles coiled. This wasn't obedience. This was urgency. "We keep going," Daniel radioed back. Then he unclipped Rex's lead. "Find her, boy!" What happened next became legend in the department. Rex led Daniel through pitch-black woods, across a ravine, and directly to a collapsed drainage tunnel where Emma lay unconscious, hypothermic, barely breathing. Daniel carried her out on his back while Rex guided them both through the dark, circling back every 30 seconds to confirm Daniel's footing. By the time they emerged, dawn was breaking. Emma survived. And when Rex finally looked at Daniel, really looked at him, eyes soft and certain, the bond was sealed. From that night forward, Daniel and Rex became legendary. 3 armed robbery apprehensions in 1 month. A kidnapping case cracked in 48 hours because Rex tracked a scent through a shopping mall, across 2 parking garages, and into a storage unit nobody thought to check. A domestic violence suspect who barricaded himself in an attic until Rex's barking forced surrender without a single shot fired. The department started calling them Walker's Miracle. Daniel hated the nickname, but he couldn't deny the truth. Rex wasn't just a K-9 anymore. He was a partner. They communicated in glances, shifts in posture, the tilt of an ear. Daniel learned that when Rex's tail dropped mid-search, danger was close. When his breathing pattern changed, he'd found something critical. Off-duty, Rex slept at the foot of Daniel's bed, ate breakfast beside him, rode in the passenger seat with his head out the window, tongue lolling, looking like any happy dog who wasn't trained to take down armed suspects. Daniel's mother met Rex during Sunday dinners and fell in love instantly. "He's got your father's eyes," she joked once, referencing Daniel's late dad, a firefighter who died saving a family when Daniel was 12. Loyal to the end. Daniel scratched Rex's ears and didn't argue. But loyalty, Daniel would learn, is a double-edged blade. Because 18 months after they became partners, a routine operation would shatter everything. And Rex would be the only one left standing who knew the truth. The tip came in at 11:47 p.m. The Ochoa gang was moving a weapons shipment through an industrial district near the docks. 6 officers, 2 K-9 units, tactical gear, body cams, the works. The plan was simple: intercept the van, secure the cargo, arrest anyone who resisted. Daniel and Rex were assigned rear flank, cut off any runners. Standard procedure. Except nothing about that night would be standard. The van screeched into the warehouse lot at 12:15 a.m. Officers moved in, shouting commands, flashlights cutting through darkness. Then, chaos. The Ochoa crew wasn't just armed. They were ready. Automatic gunfire erupted from inside the warehouse, muzzle flashes lighting up rusted metal beams like a strobe nightmare. Daniel hit the ground, pulling Rex behind a shipping container. "Stay," he commanded, heart hammering. But Rex's eyes were locked on the warehouse entrance where Officer Brennan, young, 26, 2 kids at home, was pinned down, taking fire from 3 directions. Daniel made the choice. He broke cover, sprinting toward Brennan. Rex followed without command, low and fast. They reached Brennan just as a suspect rounded the corner, weapon raised. Rex launched, 60 pounds of teeth and fury, taking the man down before he could fire. Then the explosion. Not literal, metaphorical. A suspect's stray round hit a fuel barrel inside the warehouse. The blast threw Daniel 12 feet into a concrete pillar. His last conscious thought was Rex, but he couldn't see, couldn't hear, couldn't... Darkness. When backup arrived 4 minutes later, 3 officers were wounded. 1 was bleeding out from a severed artery in his thigh. And 2, Daniel and Brennan, were unresponsive, catastrophically injured, barely alive. Both were rushed to separate ambulances. Both had similar builds, dark hair, severe facial trauma from the blast. And in the chaos, the hospital made a mistake that would nearly bury Daniel alive. St. Grace Memorial Hospital, 2:38 a.m. The ER was a war zone. Nurses shouting, doctors sprinting between gurneys, alarms screaming from every direction. Two critical officers arrived within minutes of each other, both unconscious, both covered in blood and soot, both listed as Officer D. Walker and Officer J. Brennan on hastily scribbled intake forms. Except the paramedic who filled out Daniel's form was new, dyslexic, and in the chaos swapped the names. Daniel Walker, the real Daniel Walker, was intubated, placed in a medically induced coma, and wheeled into surgery under the name James Brennan. His injuries: collapsed lung, fractured skull, internal bleeding. Critical but survivable. James Brennan, the officer who would die on the operating table at 4:17 a.m. from catastrophic blood loss, was mistakenly labeled Daniel Walker. Nobody questioned it. The officers looked similar in build. Facial trauma obscured identification. Dog tags had been removed during resuscitation. And the hospital, overwhelmed by casualties from a separate multi-car pileup that same night, didn't cross-check fingerprints until after the death certificate was signed. By sunrise, Daniel Walker was officially dead. His mother received the call at 6:02 a.m. She collapsed in her kitchen, phone clattering to the tile. The department began funeral preparations immediately. Full honors, procession, the works. And Daniel? He lay in a coma 3 floors above the morgue, nameless and alone, fighting for his life under a stranger's identity, while the world mourned a ghost. But there was one soul who knew, one creature whose instincts couldn't be fooled by paperwork or assumptions. Rex, recovering from a leg wound in the K9 unit's medical bay, refused to eat for 3 days straight. He paced, he whined, and every time an officer walked past, he'd stop and stare, searching for the one scent that mattered. Daniel's scent, which wasn't in a morgue. It was still alive. The memorial service was held on a Tuesday morning, under gray skies that matched the department's grief. 200 officers in dress blues, a flag-draped casket. Daniel's mother in the front row, clutching a folded photo of her son in his academy graduation uniform. The police chief delivered a eulogy about sacrifice, courage, and the thin blue line. Bagpipes played Amazing Grace. Grown men wept. And Rex wasn't supposed to be there. The K9 coordinator had argued against it. The dog's still injured, still traumatized. Bringing him to the funeral is cruel. But Daniel's mother requested it personally. "He was my son's partner," she'd whispered over the phone. "He deserves to say goodbye." So Rex was brought in, muzzled as a precaution, led on a short lead by Officer Martinez. The plan was simple. Walk Rex past the casket, let him pay respects, then remove him before the burial. A photo op. A gesture. Except Rex had other plans. The instant he entered the chapel, his entire body went rigid. Not grief, not sadness. Alert. His nose lifted, nostrils flaring, processing something the humans couldn't detect. Martinez felt the tension through the lead. "Easy, boy. Easy." They approached the casket. Rex's breathing quickened. Then, without warning, he lunged. The muzzle didn't stop the sound. A bark so sharp, so desperate, it silenced 200 people mid-prayer. Martinez pulled back, but Rex planted his paws and barked again, and again, and again. Not at the casket, into it. "Get him out," the chief hissed. But Rex twisted free, leaping onto the platform, front paws slamming against mahogany. The barking turned frantic, primal, a sound officers who'd worked with Rex for years had never heard. This wasn't aggression. This was terror, or recognition, or both. Daniel's mother stood face pale. "Something's wrong." And Martinez, God bless him, made the career-ending decision. "Open it!" The room erupted. The chief lunged forward. "Absolutely not! We are not—" "Open it!" Daniel's mother screamed. And they did. The latches clicked, the lid lifted, and the world stopped. Because the face inside, swollen, stitched, partially obscured by mortuary makeup, wasn't Daniel Walker. Daniel's mother staggered forward, hand over her mouth. That's not my son." Her voice cracked. "That's not my son." The chief's face drained of color. Officers surged forward, confusion rippling through the chapel like a shockwave. Someone shouted for the medical examiner. Someone else radioed dispatch. And Rex finally stopped barking. He sat down, tail still, eyes locked on the casket with an expression that felt almost like vindication. "I told you," his silence seemed to say. "I told you, and you didn't listen." The medical examiner arrived within 20 minutes and confirmed what everyone now suspected. The body was James Brennan. Fingerprints, dental records, everything matched Brennan, not Daniel. The hospital's error was undeniable, catastrophic, and still unfolding. Because if Brennan was here, then where was Daniel? The chief made the call himself, hand shaking as he dialed St. Grace Memorial. "We need a full audit of every patient admitted the night of the Ochoa raid. Specifically," his voice broke, "specifically, anyone listed as James Brennan." The hospital administrator put him on hold. 3 minutes, 5, then, "Sir, we have a patient in the ICU under that name. He's been in a medically induced coma since the night of the shooting. We were planning to wake him later this week." Silence. Then the chief's whisper, "Is he alive?" "Yes." The chapel erupted. Officers sprinted for cars. Daniel's mother collapsed into her seat, sobbing, not from grief but from relief so overwhelming it felt like drowning. And Rex, calm now, turned and walked toward the exit. His job was done. Daniel Walker opened his eyes 4 days later, in a hospital room he didn't recognize, to the sound of his mother crying. Not sad crying, happy crying, the kind that sounds like breaking and healing all at once. She gripped his hand, her face lined with exhaustion and joy. "Baby. Oh my God, baby. You're awake." Daniel's throat was raw from the ventilator. He tried to speak, managed only, "What happened?" The story came in pieces. The Ochoa raid, the explosion, the hospital error, the funeral. His mother's voice cracked when she described Rex at the casket. How the dog had known when every human system failed. "He saved you, Daniel. Rex saved you." Daniel's eyes filled. "Where is he?" "Outside. They wouldn't let him in ICU, but he's been in the waiting room for 3 days. Won't leave." When Daniel was finally wheeled to a recovery room where animals were permitted, Rex was the first through the door. The dog moved carefully, his own injuries still healing, but his tail wagged so hard his entire body curved. He pressed his nose to Daniel's hand, then his chest, breathing in the scent he'd known was still alive when no one else believed. Daniel buried his face in Rex's fur and wept. "Good boy," he whispered. "Best damn boy." But even in the joy of reunion, there was weight. Because James Brennan, Officer James Brennan, father of 2, husband, friend, was dead. Buried under the wrong name, mourned by the wrong family, his sacrifice nearly erased by a clerical error. Daniel would carry that guilt for the rest of his career. He attended Brennan's reburial with full honors, standing beside Brennan's widow and children, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. The department launched an investigation into the hospital's protocols, implemented new identification measures, and quietly settled lawsuits with both families. But for Daniel, the only closure came from a promise. He'd live the life Brennan couldn't. He'd serve with the integrity Brennan deserved, and he'd never ever doubt the instincts of the dog who'd refused to let him be buried alive. 6 months later, Daniel Walker and Rex returned to active duty. The department offered Daniel a desk job, trauma leave, medical retirement, whatever he needed. He refused. "Rex and I aren't done," he said simply, and the chief, who'd learned the hard way not to doubt that partnership, approved. Their first call back was a missing child case, an 8-year-old boy lost in a state park, parents frantic. Daniel and Rex arrived at golden hour, the sun casting long shadows through the trees. Rex caught the scent within minutes, and Daniel followed without hesitation. This time, though, something was different. Daniel noticed the way Rex paused every few yards, glancing back, not to check Daniel's pace, but to confirm his presence. The trauma of separation, of nearly losing each other, had deepened their bond into something almost supernatural. They found the boy safe, hiding in a hollowed log because he thought he was in trouble. Daniel radioed it in, then sat beside the kid while Rex licked the tears off the boy's face. "You're not in trouble," Daniel said gently. "You're just found." Later, in the patrol car, Daniel scratched Rex's ears and thought about funerals and caskets and the desperate barking that had rewritten reality. He thought about Brennan and the coin flip of fate that determined who lived and who was mourned. And he thought about his mother's words in the hospital. "Rex saved you, not through training, not through obedience, through loyalty that transcended logic, a bond so pure it could smell truth through lies, life through death, and love through bureaucracy." "You're a good boy," Daniel whispered. Rex, head out the window, ears flapping in the wind, didn't respond, but his tail thumped once against the seat, and that, Daniel knew, was answer enough. Some partnerships are assignments, some are accidents, and some, the ones that matter most, are instincts too powerful to be buried, even when the world tries. Daniel Walker had been declared dead, mourned, and nearly forgotten. But Rex knew better, and in the end, that made all the difference.